And we have a third with us. Hopefully we can get them to work. We can get their setup to work here with us before we actually do the show here.
But this is why people join us in the pre-show.
Exactly.
Fun. It's the what's going on behind the scenes.
What technical issues will Human Factors Cast run into this week? Is the pre-show. That's the show, everyone. All right, so here's Heidi. Heidi, hello. Still can't hear you. Oh no. All right. So we are trying to get Heidi's setup to work here.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, we heard something there. We heard you for a second when you said so sorry, but maybe is echo cancellation on? I think that might be what's.
Yeah.
Well, now we can hear you. Whatever you've just done then, that was us hearing you.
Yeah?
It's
kind of. There's a little bit of a delay there.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I've never had this. I don't
know what's going on either. Yeah.
What browser are you using?
What
internet browser are you using to put Restream to have Restream on? Is it
Safari?
Chrome or?
Oh, Safari. Okay.
That should be okay.
Chrome.
Yeah. Safari's okay. Maybe try it in like a Chrome or Firefox if you have those. We'll see what's going on.
Chrome normally works well.
Yeah, I usually do mine in Chrome.
I want to put that over.
All right. Well, while we wait for Heidi,
that's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah. I would love to have a third person join the discussion tonight. This is such a cool story. Oh, there's Heidi again. Let's bring you in.
Hi.
Hello. I think this is working a little bit better.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, that's it. Must have been a problem with Safari.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Anybody who's already listening to this is the absolute epitome of human factors in UX design.
Yeah.
Try it till it works.
The Bose headset, anybody who ever wants to use this particular Bose headset, it does not connect to Restream. Restream keeps kicking it out.
That's unfortunate.
What a useful thing to know.
Well, now I know.
Yeah. So while we're at it, just make sure you have that noise suppression on and echo cancellation on.
I turned all of that on.
Okay, good. So I think we should be okay there. Great. So we sent you the show notes. There's some stuff for you to fill out in there ahead of time while we do our little pre-show here. And
so I've gone slightly longer with the blurb than I usually do, mainly because I was trying to get the full breadth of what's going on, and I can't get it any smaller than that because every word is a gem. You're about to strip it, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to. If you say every word is a gem, that's a challenge. So the Stanford. So I've already taken out 2 words, Barry.
Okay. You're just taking out the essence of the article now. There's no point in reading it anymore. It's done. No, because it's about 250, so it's not too bad.
You'll be fine.
And there's I was about to say there's no real words for me to trip over this week either, but I'm sure that there's going to be something there just to have me going. Cool.
I'm going to add one in there just for you to trip over. So Heidi, there's a couple of little comments in those show notes there for you to fill out, mainly around sort of your initial reaction. If you have any additional notes that you want to throw into sort of the discussion section, and then towards the end we do the "It Came From" section. If you want to add in your thoughts there, so that way we're all sort of organized for that. And then just in terms of cadence,
I'm listening.
Yeah. Just in terms of cadence, I think what we'll likely do is just kind of go, Heidi, you first, generally for thoughts and reactions, and then we'll move on to either myself or Barry, depending on who's reading what, right? So like the initial story, you'll kind of be first reaction, I'll be second reaction, we'll go to Barry, and then we'll just kind of have a conversation between the three of us. There doesn't need to be, some super planning around who goes when. It'll just kind of be, just pass it off to who hasn't had an opportunity to talk that much.
Did you want me to type in notes into this document?
Yes. Yeah. So that way we can see them, right? So,
I don't
what's
have
that?
access. I don't have access.
Oh, you should. Let's see.
I requested it just now, but
Oh, okay.
that's why I didn't put them in there previously. I have like a couple of notes on my desk.
Cool.
Didn't think you want me to be in your document. Sorry.
Oh no, you need to be.
No. It's it's a shared document here. I will grant you access really quick there. But at least if you have your own notes on your side, that's great. All you need to do is kind of integrate them. Good.
That's good.
I have lots of thoughts on the UX career stuff, but
Good. Yeah.
Right. I need to. How to improve my skills more effectively as a junior designer? Just
probably
do the job. Oh god. It's been a very. I was complaining the fact it was a very long week this week on Tuesday, so that's kind of where I'm at this week already. Just to find context for everybody.
Oh, I'm good. I've had a week where I went to work for the first 2 days this week, Monday and Tuesday. I got my one more thing that I will talk about towards the end of the show today, but then also I was off work starting yesterday because we have a family friend visiting for Halloween. We go pretty hard for Halloween, and so I'm off until Tuesday, which is really nice. And so this is relaxing for me. I'm not stressed by like the normal day-to-day work job. It's just kind of, I'm here and I'm ready to talk about this stuff. It'll be fun.
Cool. I was stuck for my one more thing until just before I came out, and I found something that was a complete and utter revelation. So, which I think
what?
Whoa! What was it?
We'll talk about it later.
You'll find out when you get down to the bottom of the show notes. But it's I'd never heard of it before, but apparently this should be just a thing for you guys that you know about it already.
I don't know about this. That's what I was. That was my large exclamation was the what?
Right. I need to do my. How do you improve my skills as a UX designer? Yeah, that's fine. Does UX leadership suck compared to the departments? I wouldn't actually know how to do that.
What don't you know how to do?
The phonetically spelling out. Oh, I guess you just mean that. Yeah, sorry, no, I'm being dumb. I told you it's a long week. I give up. I'm just going to leave you guys to it because, clearly I'm not sparking on all cylinders today.
I think I got it, Heidi. All right. So behind the scenes, I'm getting information that I need for the show. We'll put it that way. I'm gonna.
That triggered something else about the company, my company, and that's always been a good joke.
Oh, I think I unintentionally may have said that joke to Barry when I mentioned that you were going to be on the show. About the pronunciation of your company name.
Yep.
I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't.
And it's so funny to me because it's like if you're in the field, it should be like
it's totally clear.
If you're not in the field, totally get it. But like, if you're in the field, it's like, what did you just say? And somebody said it to me, and they literally thought because my name was Heidi, and it's H, and I'm like, no.
Can we let everybody in on the joke here? So so Heidi's company's name, HFUX, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
HFUX Research, right? We do medical human factors in user experience. And for some reason, because my first name starts with an H, everybody just pronounces it in one go instead of saying HFUX.
They read it phonetically, right?
Right. And so when it was a facility I had never been at before, a market research facility. And somebody said, oh, you're from, and they said it phonetically. And I'm like, no. And she was so innocent about it. She goes, oh, I thought your name was Heidi. And, and I'm like, no.
Well, I mean, like, it's like you could do it the other way, UXHF, but then
that's not.
Yeah, right. We want to put like an emphasis on human factors first, right? And
it's not even that. It doesn't work the other way around. If you say it like the way it sounds, it just doesn't sound right. But I'm stuck with it now. It's been too long, so that's what we're gonna be.
To be fair, isn't there a slash between the two, right?
There is technically, but in the logo there isn't, because it's just done by font type size. Right. And so it's just I'm just taking it with humor now, because now I just want it to be humorous. Like, it's gonna be that company.
Yeah, I just put it up there for everyone watching. You can read it out phonetically if you'd like.
And the funny thing about last about it, the funny thing this is how entrepreneurial I was when I founded my company and everything. And I was like, oh my God, that name's gonna be it. Like, I thought it was just the greatest name.
That's it. Like, it's the stock ticker, right?
Yes. It's like, it's 4 letters. I can use it as a Twitter handle and everything. And the second that happened, I was like, yeah, no, we're HFUX Research.
Yes. Tack that research on at the end.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Oh, I love it.
But it gives you a good story as well. So
yeah,
that is true.
It works. People often talk to me and sort of say, how did I come up with the name for my company? So my company is K Sharp. And how did that come about? Well, the K, we think, was from like sort of the Kirby bit and all that sort of that. But then the Sharp bit was because I thought I'd be really clever and have a musical sharp symbol above the K as a logo. And I thought just the whole thing. Now, I was on the way back from the pub after a really good night out. And at the time, it made perfect sense. And it was brilliant. And then my wife decided that that wasn't the best idea. I kept that logo for about 6 months. And then Amanda said, no, if I'm going to come and work with you, then we're not having that piece of rubbish as our logo. I was like, well, I'm not hurt much.
Much.
And so we got rebranded. So we kept the K Sharp bit, but just the musical sharp symbol was thrown away. But it's still here in my heart. It's fine.
I feel a little bit like the odd man out here. I feel like I don't have a company. I have an entity called Human Factors Cast that I own and manage and operate.
That's your baby, isn't it?
Listen, isn't that enough?
I guess. Yeah, I guess. We're not making money off of this, but yes, it's I guess, right? So
from a time consumption and life management, isn't it enough?
I mean, if I could make a couple bucks of this on the side, that'd be great. But yeah, no, it really is a passion, labor of love. But yeah, naming things is hard because I wanted it to be both, I guess, user friendly in that sense. When people come to it and they like, what is this show about? Human Factors podcast. It is a podcast about human factors. I didn't know how else to simplify it. I mean, Human Factors podcast, I guess, would have been a little bit more clear, but
No, Human Factors works. It's got that. It's a bit of flair.
The flair.
It's better than, in some respects, it's better than 1202 because 1202, unless you're actually well in the field, you got no idea why it's called 1202.
You know, I can't tell you how many people stopped by the booth at HFES and was like, "Why is Barry's podcast called 1202?" So, and I kept plugging it. I was like, "You got to go listen to the first episode. That's why. Yeah. Just go listen to it."
I need to redo that first episode though to make it, because listen back to it now, it's embarrassing. Just the production. I'm trying to do funky production quality things without any production skills, any quality, or any idea of really what I'm doing. It was 3 years ago, and nothing has really changed because I still don't really know what I'm doing. I've got no skills. But apart from that, it's all going well.
You got better equipment now, and
it's true. Oh yeah. The gear is brilliant because that's the only thing I can change.
Well, I would say if Human Factors doesn't work out for me, I'm pretty low on the other skill too.
I've been joking a lot recently that if Human Factors doesn't work out for me, I'm going to become a political analyst because, like, every day now I'm checking early vote totals in places, I'm checking polls, I'm checking a bunch of different information from a wide variety of different sources, and annoying the hell out of my family friend and my wife and my son in the process. But
you're being in the UK at the moment.
What's that?
I'm going to try being in the UK at the moment for for political.
I'm following UK politics too, Barry. I keep messaging you like, wow, wild day in the UK, right? Like,
no, we've got new prime minister and everything, new cabinet, and still it's all going wrong. But apart from that, it's all great.
I think for an American, it's like we already have reached maximum overload like a long time ago. Like, it's really hard to be like, oh, what is happening here and what is happening there? It's like, no. But I think it's funny that you considered political analyst, because that's right up my alley too. That's all I do.
In fact, hold on. I wasn't going to do this. I'm going to show. This is the pre-show, so I don't care. I've actually, if you want to learn how nerdy I am, I've been taking data sets from previous years, previous midterms, and looking at turnout in comparing them to how previous years have gone. Here, I'll kind of move this around. You can see I'm actually plotting graphs out and seeing how we've done in terms of turnout between 2018, 2020, and 2022 for my particular county. So I've got it up on my screen like right now.
Your level of geek is impressive.
I love it.
Because we're going through a whole bunch of selections as well. So I'm talking to all sorts of people who want to be candidates for various seats and things like that. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting time. But
yeah, I don't like it's okay. Now I'm just stuttering, but like I never know if it's okay to say it, but like I'm German and I'm Iranian, and so like with everything that's been going on, and then I'm an American and I live here, and I'm like, okay, so I monitor like everybody, and then you just get to an absolute like overload. It's like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? How can I support? What am I doing? Like go here, go this, sign this, and do this. And at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to schedule an hour a day for this just so I can participate.
I know. I try to slip it in when I can in between different things. So that way I don't know. Like there's communities that I'm a part of that also do this stuff similarly for their own neck of the woods and for national. And there's a couple tools out there that are really cool that model sort of political party versus turnout and all that stuff. No, Heidi, I was actually going to comment on that, and looks like we have actually got some really avid listeners tonight who don't normally join us, but we got the best adult dating site bots out on our channels. So
we clearly appeal to a variety of audiences.
Not usually a community I speak to.
Yeah.
Well, everybody needs usability.
Well, if you look at the Venn diagram of human factors practitioners and adult dating websites,
Okay, just think about what I was wondering where you're going to go next.
I don't know where.
Them hand movements are not doing you any favors.
They clearly have UX people working on like dating websites, right? Because Match and the other one, the Tinder, and
No, isn't it Bumble that has that like simple thing? Or don't
I don't know.
Here I'm aging myself.
You two both going, oh, we don't really know how this works, but we've heard that there's
So Match and OkCupid do like the big studies every year, and they like publish their results, and so they have like researchers there working on stuff. But I think this is maybe not what that link is for. Is probably not for those dating sites. It's probably for
Different types.
Yes,
adult websites in general.
More forward dating.
Although they got to have people working on them behind the scenes too. And if they don't, they're probably fairly terrible, right? Carb manager.
What is carb manager?
Sounds like something that I should be probably using.
Is it to manage your carbohydrate intake?
I'm assuming.
Oh, good God.
Yeah, again, that's probably more aimed at me. Right, we've got 6 minutes before we go.
Oh, right, yeah.
So I hate to bring you all back to the show and stuff,
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Are there any lingering issues or notes here on the show notes that we should probably address? Let's see here. Heidi, you got your initial reaction there. Okay, got it. And then
have I done what's my handover? Yes, okay.
Great.
Fine. Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, it looks like the last it came from still needs some answers there. And the one more thing, Heidi, I think. And then
I see.
Very end, the Twitter /website stuff, if you want to promote that, that's your time to plug HFucks.
You've been wanting to say that all this time, haven't you?
You've been waiting to say it.
I was waiting for the adult website bots to come in, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that was worth the wait.
It does bring. Actually, we weren't talking about that. Talking about usability in them sort of industries as well. Presumably, the the adult toy industry must also use UX designers, but you don't see that on their CVs, do you?
Well, what was it? I think a couple weeks ago we had like, what do you do if you can't, show your portfolio? And I had mentioned the person that I had met up with at a conference, or I forget exactly where I heard it really, but how basically they had that same concern of like they worked on an adult site and they couldn't show that stuff, and so they just replaced everything's with like pictures and videos of cats, and it was like a cat
so that's
video
true, yes,
website.
I just say it's confidential.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Well, in my industry, that it is. So it's like it's a very challenging topic if you have worked on projects that are not on the market yet and everything's confidential. So you can't share anything. I always get the request, can you give a case study? Can you give a case study? I'm like, if you want one from 8 years ago, yeah, but
yeah. Working in defense, that's like me all the time. I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
I usually, if it's critical and you can generalize it enough, you can ask the client to sign off, but it's sometimes difficult. I don't know.
Yeah, it takes. If I was to do that, they will do it. If I put in a request to do it, then and some things we do agree in advance because I've got savvy to it now. But if I want to just to generally do stuff, then it's a 2-month cycle because it's not on their important list. So normally it's about 2 months for them to turn around and okay it or not. Most of the time it isn't okay, but yeah. It's,
Oh, Vanessa, yeah. What can you do if you have NDAs or material that might not be palatable? Yeah. It's a tough question. I mean, like, because I worked in defense too for a very long time, and it's like you can talk about very general problem statements, but once you start connecting that to the work that you've done, then it's like, where does the classification begin?
Yeah.
Where does it end? For me, fortunately, a lot of the projects that I was working on, it was like the classification of data around those things and not necessarily the what. And so that was good that I could talk about it. Still can't talk about some things, but the big ones I can, which is good.
That reminds me of so in medical device development, you can't, if you work in human factors, usability, UX design, in these areas, you want to talk about the impact that the methods, the skills, the approach, the process had on it, right? So you want to show the improvement of the actual usability. So you do need to show the features or the product, or you need to speak to a specific feature. And then often you have to explain what the consequences of it was, right? So the challenge there is you most likely won't ever get a client to allow you to say, so we found out this was really dangerous.
Yep.
And this was not good. So then, you're in that lock again of like NDA and nobody's going to sign off. So that's why in medical human factors, the story of the inhaler and the case study of the inhaler has been on PowerPoint slides for, I think, honestly, the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well, hey, Heidi, are you good to go?
I'm good to go.
Good. Barry, are you good to go?
Oh.
I guess so.
Oh, the one more thing. Yep, got it. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Take one more look. We're going to be right back. We'll play a quick little intro, and we'll be back to start the show right after this. Thank you for sticking with us during this pre-show. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Human Factors Cast. This is episode 262. We're recording this live on October 27th, 2022. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I am joined today not only by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Hello.
Hi, Barry. But I'm also joined today by Heidi Mehrzad.
Hi.
Hey, Heidi. Welcome to the show. We got a great show for you all tonight. We're going to be talking about the Stanford exoskeleton and how it's walking the walk now out in the real world. We're also going to answer some questions from the community about the most important qualities of a UX HF researcher that they must have, how to improve skills in a junior role, and we'll assess how UX and HF leadership compares to other departments. But first, we got some programming notes for you. If you haven't already caught up with some of our HFES coverage, we'll have a roundup out soon, but there's a ton of stuff for you to go out and experience. We did that 10-hour live stream directly from the event with something like 11 interviews or something like that. We packaged those up and sent them out into your podcast feed for your consumption. They're also available on YouTube. So please go check those out. We spent a lot of time sitting down with those folks, and they had some really awesome things to say. And some of them are still sticking with me. Barry, I got to know, though, what's going on over at 1202?
So on 1202, we've still got the Proactive Learning, which is an interview with Dr. Marcin Nazaruk, which is looking at new and interesting ways to define safety and understand what safety looks like in our workplace. Fundamentally, it's about how do we learn from normal work rather than learning from accidents and incidents, because by the time it's happened, it's too late. We want to nail it beforehand. So that's live now, and recommend that you go and have a listen.
Yes, I will for sure listen to that, but we know why you're all here. You are here for the news, so let's go ahead and get into it. That's right. This is the part of the show all about human factors news. This is the story part where we read the story. Barry, what is the story this week?
I love the professionalism of the intro. So this week we talked about Stanford exoskeleton walks out into the real world. So for years, the Stanford biomechatronics laboratory. I told you there'd be words tonight. Has captured.
I love the professionalism of the newsread, Barry.
Oh dear. So they've captured imaginations with the exoskeleton emulators, which have been lab-based robotic devices that help wearers walk and run faster with less effort. Now these researchers will turn their heads out into the wild with their first untethered exoskeleton. The robotic boot has a motor that works with the calf muscles to give the wearer an extra push with every step. But unlike other exoskeletons out there, this push is personalized thanks to a machine learning-based model that was trained through years of work using emulators. The exoskeleton makes walking easier and can increase speeds by applying torque at the ankle, replacing some of the functions of the calf muscle. As a user takes a step, just before their toes are about to leave the ground, the device helps them push off. When a person is first using the exoskeleton, it provides slightly different patterns of assistance each time the person walks. By measuring the resulting motion, the machine learning model determines how to better assist the person the next time they walk. It only takes about an hour of walking with the exoskeleton to customize it to a new user. Optimized assistance allows people to walk 9% faster with 17% less energy expended per distance traveled compared to walking in normal shoes. The ultimate aim of this is to help people with mobility impairments, particularly older people, move throughout the world as they like. With this latest breakthrough, the research team believes the technology is ready for commercialization in the coming few years. So Heidi, are you ready to step out with robotic boots? What do you think?
I found it very interesting that they looked at this from a perspective of like doing it in day to day, not just in a sense of aiming it only at people who had injuries or whatnot. So the fact that they kind of established that that can help anybody and everybody, especially the elderly, I thought that that was very interesting. I personally always get very concerned about the socioeconomic background of the situation, right? So this sounds wonderful, but it'll be a decade before this becomes something that people can afford or people will have access to. So it's something for me still kind of futuristic. And I would be concerned that only the people who have the ability financially or socioeconomically will have access to this, and it will kind of divide the elderly or the disabled in the categories of being able to take advantage of something like that and then not take advantage of it. So that's kind of what my initial reaction was like, oh, well, only people who have money will be able to afford this.
Yeah, I think you're right. We could talk a little bit more about those impacts a little bit later on. I think for me, my gut reaction is more of a like I don't know, like a little boy in the candy shop. Give me one of these. I want one of these. I want a pair. You know, Nike puts out their like their midnight drops or whatever. I want this on midnight drop. Give me one of these. No, I think it's cool, and I think there's a lot of really practical application, and I hope that there's a way that this can get sort of to the people that need it in a way. But then there's also other impacts that I think this has for other industries and domains that I would really love to jump into. But Barry, what are your initial thoughts on this?
So when you jump into that, are you going to jump into them with your new boots on?
Yes,
Sorry,
absolutely. Yeah, no.
let's do the jokes later. I'm kind of similar. Yeah, the gadget geek inside me really wants them, because I mean, I also live the village where I live is on the side of a hill, and I'd love to be able to walk up the hill as much as down it, and these would just help me to do that. But I do worry about some of these things. We've kind of talked about this in the past, about what happens when you don't use it. So if you're using something like this all of the time, then when you take them off and you don't use them anymore, are we over assisting? Is it just going to be so ubiquitous? Actually, if you suddenly, it's a bit like when you come back from space. If you come back from space, see how linked space into it. How brilliant is that? When you come back from space and you suddenly, you get affected by Earth's gravity, you can't walk anymore. You have to almost like retrain to do that. You're going to have a similar thing with this. So I think we'll probably dig into this a little bit later on as well. But fundamentally, yes, please. And if I can have 2 pairs for Christmas, that'd be awesome.
So there's a lot of discussion points, a lot of ways that we can go with this discussion. Heidi, you're the guest here this week. I want to throw it to you. Like, what part of this do you want to talk about first?
I like what Barry just brought up, because that's something I didn't even think about. Because my first reaction was so focused on new technology, right? Stanford, like, there's a lot of funding that goes into it. It's very advanced, very innovative, can help a lot of people. Like, yes, please, for the disabled people and the elderly. I just thought of the elderly. Like, if my grandma would have been able to have that in her later years, like, she could have been walking around outside, because you love that, going up and down the stairs and all that. Will this eliminate, the wheelchair aspect in some instances, right? Will people just be able to walk and have the energy for it? But I didn't even think about that. And that actually makes me more concerned. Like, will the overuse end up going as being a disadvantage because you're not using your muscle atrophy, right?
Yeah.
So is there a component of where they're looking into it where they will stimulate the muscle, because they do speak about these being customized in a sense, because they have these the learning software in it. So will it then also stimulate your muscles, like almost like what are those called? The EMS, is it EMS? The new technology.
Oh, the electrostimulation, yes.
Yeah. Like, will it give you a little bit of a shock every once in a while to keep the muscle going? So
I guess
that would be.
It's interesting because when you read the article, it does sort of say that it's trying to extend the muscle usage. So I guess you are still using the muscles, and it's seen as an is it an extra, or are you doing less? And I guess that's the balance of it from a usability perspective. I don't necessarily understand, because I could see if you're trying to improve performance, then you'd be extending what you could do. So you could, if you're using 17% less energy for the distance, that means you can walk for 17% further. So you're extending your performance. But me being me, and I'm fundamentally a lazy person, I'd be going, great, I've saved nearly 20% of my energy and I can get back on the sofa really quickly.
Barry, I actually wrote that down in the show notes. It's like, what happens once available to everybody? How does this not make us lazy as a society? It's right down there, organizational, social. But I mean,
cool.
but thank you for bringing that point up, because really, I mean, to me, that was a big question for me, is like, okay, well, if everybody has this, some utopia down the line, everybody has this technology and we're using it for different ways, what are we spending that energy on, and how do we redirect our physical energy into something else? Like, yes, like you and I, Barry, would love this because we're lazy and would like to save that 20 extra percent. But does that mean that we can go 20% further on the same amount of energy that we're expending now? Because of this technology? Does that mean that yes, we are saving, but does that mean that overall, the whole of it, does that mean that we can do more? And I think one sort of big area in which I have a ton of notes, Barry, that you said was a ton of notes, but really I just listed a bunch of jobs here. And I think this is a good tie into that. So I'm going to bring it up, but like what benefits could this technology have for other aspects of our day to day, like work, right? And this is built for people with mobility limitations. But what could this do for other industries, right? Think about other roles that are more mobile, things like tour guides, dog walkers, personal trainers. Would you be able to train more individuals using less energy? Think about construction, landscaping, doctors and nurses who are walking all over a facility all day. You got farmers, any delivery person, park rangers, post persons, firefighters. And there's a bigger question of what would this do for standing fatigue? Would this reduce any standing fatigue, or would it increase it because you have these additional things on your feet that are additional weights, and sort of operating differently than you normally would standing? But for those like teachers, retail workers who are walking, but if they are standing at I'm thinking like cashiers, right? Or chefs and cooks who are in a limited space, they're still moving around. What would it do for them if they're standing, right? So these are some questions that I have, and we can get to military applications in a minute, but those are the whole separate set of jobs where this technology might actually help with some of that stuff. So I don't know. I want to get your thoughts on that, both of you. Heidi, I'll start with you.
Well, you just brought something up that made me think about the fact that these are they heavy? How heavy are they, right? So, and I'm sure that these engineers have done their math, and I'm not going to do the math of an engineer who worked on this for 10 years or whatnot, but in my head, I'm going, okay, so it saves energy, but are you also using more energy because you have these weights, right? So then is it coming, how much is it evening out? How much is it increasing over you having to have that weight on you? And if that is a factor, then how really is it going to be useful for elderly people who barely can lift, the chair from the kitchen, like move the chair back from the kitchen table? So that would be a question I have in my head, like how heavy would this be? And then the thing that catches me on it also now is that we think about it when we look at bigger applications, right? What is the troubleshooting factor, right? So elderly people, right? What are they going to do if it malfunctions, or if there's any issues with it, right? And they're out and about, like, what are they going to do? Call a number, or like, how's this really going to work applied like in the real world? And so I don't know if you think about that a little bit.
It's a really good point, because there's an element of sort of the basic usability of this that I wonder about. That if you put it on like a normal boot, I'm assuming. So is it slide on, and then is it cushioned inside so it snugly fits your foot? And does your foot go into it like a normal boot, or is it slightly, just because the way that they do the angles, I feel like you might be slightly toe down in it to get the right level of progression? But I'm assuming here. I haven't actually seen the pictures, but fundamentally you'll need to take it on and off. I feel, because of the nature of what it is, I'm guessing that your feet are slightly further apart than they usually are, because you've got the mechanics of the inside of the boot. The mechanics of that will make your stance go wider. And so if you're walking with it at speed, is there a chance of you actually clashing the two boots together? And so therefore, how rugged is that element of it? And just going off what you said, Heidi, what happens when you run out of power? What happens when you run out of batteries? Not that that's on my mind a lot now with you driving an electric car, but the whole piece around, imagine being halfway up a hill as an elderly person, the batteries run out, and then you're stuck to the side of the hill because you can't move because they're too heavy. And all you've got is maybe a number to ring, and hopefully somebody will come pick you up. And then what do? Cart you onto the back of a trailer or something and take you home. Or bring an emergency battery with you and jumpstart you.
I also, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I just think that you're right in terms of thinking about the whole, using almost all the edge cases of this. Is the principle of it sounds really, really good, but there's a lot of stuff around it that I think to make it a truly usable product probably needs to be thought about a lot more.
Yeah, I think the article mentioned something about like it being ready for the world or something, or ready for the market. I don't want to misquote, but as this is a different angle, but I think about these things now a lot, having my own company and looking at it from business aspect sides, right? I do wonder, because somebody in the chat just brought up, they could be assistive in labor, warehouse, construction, and things like that. And I do wonder if the good old, greed and capitalism kicks in, and then people are outfitted with these to produce more and quicker, right? Quicker, more. Are they going to work now longer hours because, quote unquote, this saves you energy? So I have started to be a little bit more. I've noticed over the last years I had to, but now I start to have these like perspectives from a true business strategy or business approach, and that would concern me a lot.
Yeah. And thanks to Vanessa for bringing up the labor warehouse construction talks and the reference to Alien in the chat. Really appreciate the Alien reference there. I do I do kind of want to
Didn't have anything for that.
I want to expand on what you were saying there, Barry, about sort of the adaptability and really how you're basically putting this on and the usability of everything, right? So I mean, you bring up in the show notes here some aspects of what happens if you sort of encounter water or mud, and I'm assuming ruggedness is terrain. How do you interact with terrain in a way that is it a flat 17% increase when you're on a mountainous terrain versus a flat city street? There's those questions. But I think one thing that is interesting to me is that this system is using artificial intelligence to accommodate for individual differences. And I'm wondering if sort of the next step of their research is to figure out how AI can accommodate for certain use cases. So, right. So like, what happens if you are in the rain or if it is wet and there's less traction? What happens if you are on an uneven terrain? Does it, sort of do some micro adjustments on your feet to make sure that you don't trip and fall as well? Is that an additional feature that you can do that maybe doesn't save you energy efficiency, but also just makes it safer so that you can traverse? And this is a great opportunity to bring up one of these social thoughts by John Putty. Barry, do you want to read this one?
Yeah, so John commented on the LinkedIn post that we put out there earlier on today. And so anybody else who's listening, when we try and put the social thoughts up earlier in the week. So if you've got your thoughts, get your thoughts in and comment on them, and then we'll be able to read them out, just like we're going to read John's out now. And John said, I'd have thought the biggest issue is going to be enabling the boots to learn the individual anatomical features of the wearer so they can complement/augment the natural gait rather than work against it, but also add strength where the wearer has natural weakness. He goes on to say he broke his ankle at uni and so has a weakness to overpronation. So support there is good, but not being overly restrictive to limit mobility. So thanks for your thought there, John.
Yeah, I just thought John's thought kind of fit in nicely with that AI actually using or adapting to the individual. That's, the use case side of it is interesting as well. I had another point on those, but I think I put them somewhere else. I don't know. Who wants to talk about what next?
So just to finish off that usability piece, if you go to the article and look at it, it's quite obvious that, it's still, I would say, strong prototype phase. There's wires everywhere. There's motors that are open, and a lot of the moving parts are out there. But you can easily see how a lot of that would be encompassed in, decent waterproofing, more of a boot-like structure. I can almost see like a space boot type of thing. But the bit that amused me when you were sort of suggesting the different type of modes you could have, and combining that with Heidi's comments around how does capitalism work from this, you could almost see the Tesla approach to this boot, that you not have a normal walking function, but then if you want to go up hills, you can get the uphill upgrade just by subscribing $2.99 a month. If you want to be able to go downhill as well, that's an extra $3.99 a month. And if you want to start walking faster or whatever, then you can have different subscription packages depending on what it is you're doing. Which on the one hand, I am slightly mocking the way that some of it's been done, but actually from a production perspective, if you can get it to do one thing, if you can get one product and then be able to sell it in different areas, different for different roles. So we're going to talk about the military in a bit, but then we've talked about all these other jobs. They all have slightly different needs, and if the software can help tailor the boot to the application, then that would be quite a nifty thing. That would be really quite cool. But it's how you then do that and how you cost that and how you make sure that works. But I'm really, from a usability perspective, from a design perspective, I'm really intrigued to see where this goes and how, fundamentally, how they hide the wires in a way that is a nice, comfortable boot that you would want to wear. Because as we said, if you're going to do it for longer, you're exerting, so your feet are going to sweat, you're going to they're going to rub, all these sort of things. So how do we make sure that the foot is well looked after, that you're what sort of socks would you want to be wearing with this, all the basic stuff. How do you make sure you don't get sores and blisters and things like that? And then fundamentally, how do we look after it? How do we, from an engineering perspective, how do you wash it? How do you take out the inserts, etc.? How does that work? Heidi, what are your thoughts? Where do you want to go next on taking this thing apart?
Well, now that you brought that up, that makes me wonder also, with somebody brought up how long can they be used, right? What is the life cycle of them? So that actually made me think about something else in the medical human factors engineering. We have to consider, what is the upkeep? What is the maintenance, right? So, okay, the maintenance on the product itself, right? But does this require that you check in with a doctor who is specialized in this, right? That they can do assessments on you, or that they can check that it's not disadvantaging your body or setting it back, or like we spoke earlier about muscle atrophy, right? Things like that. So would it then come with something like that? And you jokingly, said about, if you want to walk uphill, it's extra here or what, but how is that incorporated into the product? And is that then taking care of your insurance? And so there's a lot of financial questions I have in my head for that to be something that it can really be a real world product, and not something that you hear of, and when you read the miracle stories of, person was able to walk again after 4 years or something. And, because of this access they had to this facility nobody's ever heard of, because it's only for rich people. And so that made me think of that right now. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's a huge financial aspect.
Yeah, I mean, insurance in the U.S. is a whole separate conversation. Barry, UK healthcare gap. Yeah, congratulations. But like, will that type of thing, right? Will insurance or healthcare, just in general, if we start thinking about the healthcare approach, will that make this available to most folks who need it, right? Depending on cost, depending on impact to the end user, which again, elderly, mobility impaired, for at least this first go around, right? But then the commercial applications would be like, how do we use this to get our workers to work for 2 extra hours since it's 20% better, right? I think this is a good time to talk about the military applications, because we're talking about government and we're talking about insurance and making it available to everybody. I suspect that the military might be one of the first applications that is not meant for those who are mobility impaired or elderly, right? Because I think this would assist with being able to transport loads on foot for longer durations. If sort of less energy was spent on walking, you could basically transport that stuff longer, combine that stuff with other exoskeleton technology. We've actually talked about in the show before. I don't have a number for you, but we've definitely talked about reducing loads for military personnel carrying things on the show, and reducing that load. You basically, with the walking technology, you have basically human pack mules, and that is incredibly valuable to military applications to be able to transport something without technology involved for a variety of reasons. But those are some immediate applications that I can think of. Again, these roles where you are moving a lot, walking a lot, I think are going to be some of the first real world applications outside of those sort of populations that we talked about, elderly, mobility impaired, where we're going to see this. I do want to shout out just a couple folks in the chat. Thank you, Alex and Vanessa, for just chatting up on YouTube. I really appreciate all the comments. I don't know if we'll get to them all, but there's some really good points in there. And if you're listening to this later, please try to join us on our live shows, because there's a lot of really great discussion that you're all missing out on. Yeah, I don't know. Military applications.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the actual value, to be able to turn around, so the basic fighting part of the military is the infantry, is the infantry person with their weapon and their webbing, and being able to go and infiltrate or just march into territory. If you can boost their capability effectively by 20%, which is what we're talking about, that's significant, and that's a game changer. Now, there is an element which we've already touched upon there, that if you're going to do that sort of work with the military, they don't tend to go walking around nice streets and things like that. They tend to go in hot places, cold places, sandy places, muddy places, and things like that. So going back to that usability bit, they would have to be ruggedized really well. But providing you got that right, then that would be really neat. The other one, the other application which I thought was interesting would be shock absorption. So if you've got paratroopers, so basically anybody who is jumping down from a height, if these would almost be able to work the other way and actually absorb shock through the use of mechanics. So it's almost a reverse of what it's actually doing at the moment. That also would save some damage there. So that I can see lots of application from the military side. A question I'd like to throw open to the both of you, though, is it's slightly amusing, but also not. If they've got this ability to do things and then be have IoT control, or basically computer control, what happens if it gets hacked?
Hacked?
What? Yeah, so if from a cyber perspective, if somebody hacked the boots, so then they can send you walking off somewhere that you don't want to. And I don't know if either of you have seen the animated film that was done in the UK called The Wrong Trousers. If not, I thoroughly recommend you go and look it up and go and watch it. But this is pretty much what I'm talking about. Somebody else having control of your feet.
Well, actually, anything, right? Anything that is done by software can be interfered with if it works over any kind of transmission frequency, right? So that's actually, I was going to bring up that as my next point, interference, right? Mm-hmm. So not just think about hacking, think about something that every time anything with power software or, wires, anything comes up in the medical human factors community, we automatically have to think about, well, then people with heart implants can't use it. People with implants in general, what is the interference with the implants, right? So the thing that scares me there the most is that we already have that stage right now where most people with such things like heart implants can't do a lot of things when it comes to very advanced medical technology. And that would scare me the most, that now you're excluding a huge population that actually would have one of the biggest advantages of energy saving kind of right, mobility tool. I don't know what your thoughts were on that, Nick.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things here, and I guess the first thing I'd like to talk about is maybe these things getting hacked, right? So thinking about that, I don't know if we could have the wrong trousers situation where they're actually controlling our bodies, but they could potentially do something much more harmful. If this AI is in fact interfacing with your muscles, they could actually program it to do some damage to those muscles as you're walking, which could be much more damaging to people in the long run, right? So that's kind of the first concern. Just generally, I think this, I guess the last point that I'll kind of bring up, and then we'll get out of here, is this opens up a whole discussion for what this might do for government regulation. What types of communications are being sent to these devices? What kind of the ways in which they interface with our bodies? How can we protect that? And there are some who don't like government overreach, but I think this is one instance where the safety aspect really would be a critical component, especially if you have somebody talking with the government about human factors' role in safety of medical devices or prosthetic devices or exoskeletons, whatever you want to classify this as. I think there's an important discussion to be had of what things can a government, not just the US government, what things can a government do to help ensure that people are least likely to get injured or hurt by using this technology. So that's kind of what I will leave it at. We're short on time, so let's just move on to the next part of the show. I just want to thank all of our patrons this week for selecting the topic, and thank you to our friends over at Stanford University for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to all the original articles on our weekly roundups and our blog. You can also join us in our Discord for more discussion on these stories and more. Again, I just want to thank one more time everybody in the YouTube channel for talking today. That's awesome. If you want to continue this discussion, let's move it to the Discord. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you, as always, to our patrons. We especially want to thank our honorary Human Factors Cast staff patron, Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you truly keep the show running, lights on, all that stuff. We have a whole lab that is powered by your contributions to the show, and we seriously couldn't do any of this without you. Literally everything that you give to the show, we give back into the show. We don't pocket anything. Barry has bought a new electric car with all of your donations, and that is unfortunate that he is using it on the electric car. But no, seriously, I want to talk quickly about Human Factors Minute. So if you missed our announcement from HFES, we do have, we're making this public. So there's the surprise announcement that we announced at HFES. We're making it free starting in February of next year. So we'll have 10 episodes, probably a little bit more than that, actually available at launch, because we've had some free episodes that we'll put up there as well. The public feed of Human Factors Minute will air on the 10th, 20th, and the last day of the month each month. If you're doing the math, that means that our Patreon patrons will still receive 1 extra minute a month, which will then result in sort of a higher value proposition for our patrons over time. But this really does sort of get some of the hard work of the lab out there into the public domain, something that we are very excited about and can't wait to share with you all. And just for everyone's awareness, we have plans up to 2036 for the public feed. So you're going to be listening to us for quite a long time. What is that, 14 years from now?
That's planning and something else, isn't it?
That is a very, very long time. All right.
Commitment.
What's that?
That's commitment.
That is commitment. Yeah. I mean, look at us. Look at us. We just got a bunch of stuff lined up for y'all. How nice are we? All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get into this next part of the show we like to call.
It came from.
And at this point, this is why you come to the live shows. Because we're going to take a quick pause. We lost Heidi. We're going to wait for Heidi to get back before we continue on with It Came From. So while we're waiting for Heidi, what did y'all think of the story today?
Yeah, it was. I liked it. It was one of these. I think we could have easily talked for like another hour or two. I mean, when I was putting together the actual verbal bit, this is one of the longer articles that we've had in a long time, but it's an article that's just full of meat. There's stuff in there. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. So well done, all those people who selected it.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I looked at it and I was like, oh, but there's. I don't want to say which other story I was preferring to that one, but there's one other one that I was kind of hoping that would be picked, and I was like, oh, this one, okay, all right. But yeah, I had a ton of fun with that chat, and I'm really glad that we had a third for that from a human factors, medical human factors perspective too. I think that really added a lot to the chat.
And
everybody we can get them back.
Yeah, everybody on YouTube as well.
Yes,
everyone's just found it, which is brilliant, and it's what makes the show really sort of dynamic. Is the ability for people who know what they're talking about, throwing in their thoughts, their ideas, and all that sort of stuff. And then you get people like me just being able to throw in my random comments, which is just fantastic. So, yeah, and that's really, really neat.
All right. Yeah. Looks like we got Heidi back. Heidi, we lost you during that commercial. It's all good. So what we're going to do, just for editing purposes, is I am just going to play the intro to It Came From again, and we'll continue on with the show. Thank you, everyone, for sticking with us through some technical difficulties. All right. Ready. Here we go.
It came from.
That's right. This is the part of the show all about It Came From. That's I'm doing the wrong intro. Anyway, this is where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. If you find these answers useful or helpful wherever you're at, give us a like or leave us a comment wherever you're listening. Those on YouTube, do it. We could use those likes. That's really helpful. The first one up here is by on the UX research subreddit. This is by user Crazy8. They write, what are some of the most important qualities a UX researcher, or I'm just going to expand this into human factors practitioner, must have? And what are qualities that are often overlooked or ignored by employers or not specified in job offers? Heidi, I'm curious on your thoughts of this one. What qualities are you looking for in UX and HF roles that are often overlooked?
So this is actually something funny. As I'm trying to grow my company, I've started to realize that I myself am making the mistakes that I would advise somebody now not to do. But because you get so focused on the human factors research experience, the human factors engineering experience, have they had exposure to UX research? How have they done studies? Have they moderated? Have they done data analysis? All that stuff is great, and UX design, all that stuff is great. But then when they come into an office setting, right? Let's say consulting agency or a corporate world, right? The thing that we sometimes forget is that these companies and the way we work, we haven't evolved into like all these amazing new softwares, right? So we still work with Microsoft Office. Your documents are still written in Word. You still do most of your data analysis in Excel, and your presentations are done in PowerPoint, and you have to send PDF files, and like it gets into this world of where I get it. as a Gen Xer, yeah, I get it. Like, it's not interesting for the new generations. But those things actually really affect your quality of work and your ability to be able to contribute. And so that was the first thing I had in my head. I was like, that one I would like to put on the list. And as well as time management. Have they led projects? Have they led successful outcomes and things like that? Because that all goes to logistical and time management, people skills, right? Were they able to finish the project on time? So as far as me here sitting as an employer go, I want to see those skills, because the other stuff I can almost guarantee that if you have a good resume, you're going to bring those skills, right? So that would be my number one. I don't know, Barry, what are your thoughts as someone who is a business owner too?
I mean, for me, I think the things you brought up, it's them non-technical skills, isn't it, or the non-HF technical skills that are key. But for me, it's sense of humor. There's going to be days when it doesn't go right. The stakeholders aren't working in the way that you want them to. The project manager is giving you grief, all that sort of stuff. And if you can't laugh at the end of it, even cynically, then that's just, you need that sense of humor. I think a big one, and I still struggle with this when I'm recruiting, is empathy. Are you able to put yourself in the position of your user? You don't, not necessarily knowing everything about their job, because that's not what we do, but at least be able to gather an understanding of their frustration and see where they're coming from. So using empathy. And just to go, I guess, highlight what you've already mentioned around office skills. If you can't use PowerPoint and Excel to do the entire project, your UX design and all your assessment, then quite frankly, don't bother walking into my office. Nick, what about you? What's your thoughts?
Oh man. Well, I think mine is a little bit different from either of yours. I think for me, it's the ability to adapt and respond to unforeseen circumstances. Because as you come into a project, as you come into a role, um, or I guess a research thread or whatever you want to call it, nothing is going to go exactly the way that you plan it ever. You can plan it all you like. You can plan for contingencies, and that's kind of another point that I'd like to make, is the ability to plan for contingencies and expect sort of the unexpected in a way that allows you to adapt. I don't want to say agilely at with agility, adapt with agility, but having that skill is something that I don't think can be taught very easily. Whereas I'm going to do a slight disagreement with both of you. I think Microsoft Office and other programs can be taught. It gives you an advantage, sure, but I think that hard skill of being able to adapt is something that is a little bit harder to teach. So that's my kind of 2 cents on that. All right, let's get into this next one here. This one is by on the user experience subreddit by Prometheus Dev. They write, "How to improve my skills most effectively as a junior uh, designer," but I'm going to say this junior role. They write, "Like many others, I changed my field to UX pretty late. I focused really hard on building a strong portfolio, which paid off. My problem is that I feel that since I came into this field late compared to my peers, I'll need to catch up. I know some skills will come through my job naturally, but some people can learn in 1 year at a job what others learned in 4. I want to be able to control my learning path and not rely on random chance. What is your advice on how to use my time efficiently as possible to accelerate my skills, learning, and fast track my progress?" Heidi, what are your thoughts on fast tracking progress in a junior role?
First, I want to be empathetic to this person. Hi, you're 27. You're not too late in the game. Um, People change careers later all the time, and you are certainly not late in the game. So I would first take those fears away. I hope you can get past that a little bit. And then when it comes to fast tracking, um, I think the problem with that is there's a lot of things you can do to increase your skill level, right? Which already mentioned it, like courses, trainings and all those things. I think it's also important to consider you having patience in seeking out mentors. So I think going at it alone is a little, it's a not risky. I'm missing the word for it, but it's a little like, why should you if you can seek a mentor, right? So I would join a professional society or something, or a group, and find a mentor who is kind of in your boat, like they kind of went your way and they maybe crossed over also later, and then find somebody who can really kind of guide you through the steps, right? Because first and foremost, you're going to have to bring patience. Okay, fast tracking isn't, there is no fast track. There is no elevator, jumping levels or floors. It's not, it just isn't a thing. So I would be patient with myself, and then if you get lucky, you get a great mentor. And he or she mentioned, what was it, some compared to their peers, but I'm a little worried that comparing yourself to others is going to impede what you need to focus on personally, like really on yourself, right? Because skill sets for everybody are unique, right? And so I would really focus more on that. And then what some people learn in 1 year that others in 4, I can only be very empathetic and relate to myself. I had an amazing situation where I had 9 or 10, I think it was 9 or 10 months with the most amazing manager coming right out of grad school. And I learned more in that year with that company and those 10 months with that specific manager than anybody I ever encountered in their first 2, 3, 4 years. So I would also consider holding yourself a little bit to a level of like, okay, maybe not every opportunity I grasp or tackle is going to work out. There's a lot of failure in trying to get to success.
Yeah, there really is. I think from my perspective, I'm liking this format of like somebody else talking as well, because I've written a whole bunch of other notes as Heidi, you've been talking, is what you said has inspired other stuff. So I guess my first thing is, what do you think you're fast tracking to? So where is it you're trying to get to? Where do you think you're actually going? Because you're right, I get that feeling of, starting later in the career. I think I'm on my 3rd career. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And at 27, you've got loads of time to do stuff, but you've got to work out. I kind of get just through the writing, you think you've got to get somewhere. Well, you need to work out what that get somewhere is. In order to help you do that, you need experience. And the only real way you get experience is by understanding what a good experience and a bad experience is. And you don't really know them in this job, because most of them, I would like to think that 90% of the work I've done, even though it's maybe been in a variety of fields and all that sort of stuff, generally have all been good. They've all been good because they've been different. But I have had a bunch of jobs that have just been, or roles, or even just like single projects that have been like, oh, I don't like that. Or a role within a project that was like, oh, that just didn't work for me. But you don't know it until you've done it. So say yes a lot. If people ask you to do stuff, and whatever, say yes. And then if you don't like it, then you just don't say yes again to that particular one. That's fine. But now you know from your own perspective, and don't go what other people say, because as Heidi says, what works for different people, what makes different people tick, is different. It's individual. So just because you're a good friend of yours or a colleague might hate doing literature reviews, you might love them. You might like doing that type of research. You might be the one who likes to go and to do the Zoom interviews or something like that. Work out what your skill set is. And then fundamentally, it is nothing else but just doing the job. Practice, do the job, learn critical self-review, learn what you think, be able to look at what you produced and review it yourself and think, actually, that's good, that's bad, that's indifferent. Get other people to do it. As Heidi says, if you can get a mentor, then get them to help engage in constructive criticism. Because that's the way of getting faster to something, is to be able to be honest with yourself and say, yes, that's good, that's bad, that's indifferent, and then do it again and again and again until you're happy with it. and do it that way. And then hopefully, if you know where you're going to and you do this, then you'll get to where you want to be. Nick, what do you think?
I see a couple options here. The first thing I'd mention is sort of if you are looking to learn more things about what you can do, or I guess enhance your skill set, many employers will sort of pay for continuing education or training to sort of augment your skill set and ability to basically benefit the company, right? If you can learn something, bring it back to the company, you are then bringing in new knowledge that they didn't have before, new tools that they didn't have before, you as a person. So I definitely try to leverage that. Professional communities, as Heidi said, trying to get those mentors. I think that can also come from being a part of a professional society that you can also get your employer most times to pay for. Outside of that, like Barry was mentioning with the critical self-review, understanding where your sort of deficiencies are and trying to, I guess, patch those deficiencies with a passion project that you have on the side away from work. And I think I'm speaking for all of us here. I think we all have our own passion projects. Sometimes it is work, but sometimes it's podcasts or something on the side, right? Something that we can work on, but it's also helping us develop skills that we didn't necessarily have before we started those passion projects. Now, I think you can perfect those skills over time. Certainly when this podcast launched, it wasn't too great. And I'm the first one to admit that. Go back and listen to our first couple episodes and yikes. But, today I'm actually really proud of this thing that we've built. And I've learned so many skills, not just with video audio production, but with like project management and stuff through the lab that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So build a passion project and use that passion project to sort of augment your skill set with something through that thing that you can call your own at the end of the day and point to. That's my advice. We got one more here. This one's also from the user experience subreddit. This is by Giovanna PX. All right. I messed up that name, but here we go. Does UX leadership suck compared to other departments? I'm gonna edit this a little bit, but sometimes they write, sometimes I get the feeling that those in leadership are more micromanagers than other folks. I'm talking about from senior managers to VP level. The only thing I found worse was working with marketing folks. Heidi, what's your experience working with those in human factors or UX leadership roles? Do they suck?
Well, as one myself, I don't know if I suck. I would say, okay, if I'm very honest with it, I think there is a point to it. I think I know where this person's coming from, but I also feel like there's a lot of pent up something in there. So from a micromanagement point, you have to consider what field we're in, right? It is such a highly subjective, personal, unique field where your opinion, your view, your perspective, if you're a designer, if you're a researcher, you might be a researcher that has a certain set of sub skills, right? Or a designer who has a certain set of sub skills, right? And they have to make, and if they are your manager or they're your in leadership roles, right, they have to make sure that the work is a certain type of way that represents that specific company. So when you come fresh in, or you have a very unique point of view, which can be helpful in a lot of sense, but also has to be sometimes micromanaged in order to ensure branding or whatnot, right? So I think when it comes to that, we also have to consider, I'm going to just speak for me personally. We're not people, okay? We are people when it comes to research, and we love our participants and we love mingling with other researchers, but we're not necessarily the best people when it comes to managing, because we have other things in our head. We love data, we love research, we love facts, we love design, we love the newest software, right? We're not necessarily concerned with people management. So I don't know that it's been my experience. I've had some great and I've had some not so great ones, but I also have had 2 other careers, and I can tell you for 100% fact that in there I also had sucky managers. So it is not UX specific. I don't know, Barry, what do you think as far as UX being worse than other fields with having had more careers than one too?
I think your point about us, we are people, and we have the same strengths and weaknesses as any other discipline. I've had really, I think on the whole, I've not had terrible management. I've had some, certainly within the HF domain. I guess I'll qualify that a lot within HF people. When I've worked in as part of an HF department, or I've had an HF client, or whatever, generally they've all been pretty good. And I think I've been quite lucky that way. But not, when you look at the overall projects as well, I've also had some terrible managers. But that's just, again, people. I think Heidi, what you said is right, that yes, we are very people focused all the time, and that doesn't necessarily make us brilliant managers. I think when the right people harness it, it can almost go too far the other way, that we become so empathetic with what we're doing, and we try to apply too much about what we do with HF to the management role, and sometimes we need to almost step back from that in order to deliver. And I tend to be a lot more concerned about what my team are doing and how my team are than sometimes what they're doing. And I keep having to give myself the metaphorical slap around the back of the head to remember that we've got to deliver. But fundamentally, I don't think we're any better or any worse. I think there's things we do better. I think if we've had a project, I've said this before, I consider us the glue that generally holds great teams together. But when we're managing our own, when we're looking after HF people or UX people, I think we're also as fragile, as vulnerable as any other manager, I think. Nick, what's your experience? I mean, you manage a team as well, so I'm assuming you're awesome because you are.
Totally awesome. Ask anyone in the lab how organized and well put together we are, and they'll tell you that we need some work to do. But there's there's a couple things that I want to touch on here. The first is, don't mistake collaboration for micromanagement. I think this is a field where egos need to be put in check, because the more eyes on something, the better that thing is going to be ultimately, because people are coming to a project, a product, a service with various viewpoints. And if they can bring those different viewpoints and say, hey, have you thought about this? It's not to put you on defense. It's to maybe patch a hole in sort of your expertise that maybe they're trying to fill, right? So again, don't mistake collaboration for micromanagement is kind of the first thing I'll say. If you are, then maybe reevaluate. But in terms of my experience, it depends, right? I'm going to hit the it depends button on this one, because it's not typical to see bad management, but like both of you have said, like, this is just like any other field. There's going to be people who are great at managing, and there's going to be people who are not so great at managing. And I kind of wish we had Christy on the show so she could talk about that manager panel. But I think that's sort of one view that I have, is just that there's going to be people who are good for it, people who are not good for it. And it's kind of where you're at and what resources they have available to them, because it might not always be a person thing. It might be what resources or what constraints they're dealing with on their end that is going to ultimately limit their ability to manage effectively. So, no, I don't find that UX or human factors leadership sucks. I don't find that. All right. Well, why don't we get into this last part of the show? It's just one more thing. This is where we simply talk about one more thing. That's it. Heidi, what is your one more thing this week?
Now that we've had all this show, I'm not sure I want to bring that one more up. I have a bone to pick with automated call centers. And so that is where I am absolutely flabbergasted and shocked every single time that we have these amazing advances in human factors research, UX design, and all these things. And every time I call, it takes me 10 minutes to get somewhere through. I don't understand it. I don't know why it is so challenging. I don't understand why we can't get to a point where you can just say something and you get to somebody and you talk to somebody instead of going through 10 menus and then being kicked back. And then the worst is at the end when the lady on the robot says, well, thank you. Try again, maybe next time. And it's like, okay, well, I just spent a half an hour talking to you. And so that would be my one more thing. I don't know what your experiences are with the call centers and the shock that sits deep in me that we can't design them better.
Oh, the sympathy, the empathy. Yes. No, I completely get that. My one more thing this week is we are going to be designing, we're designing an extension to the house. So we've just had planning approved. So that's amazing. So now we're at the point where we're designing the kitchen. And so we're going to have detailed design development. And so I was browsing this evening, just before the show, and looking at different things. Look, I'm a gadget guy, all this type of thing, and I found something that took my breath away. The gadget that you can get now is a microwave that's in a drawer. So rather than have the thing, so you pull up. This is amazing. I mean, the usability of this thing, it means that you're actually you're not having to. It's not up on high. You're not pouring it on yourself. All this stuff. And I'm just completely blown up. And then to add to this level of amazement, so I then start searching, right, where can I buy this in the UK? I don't think we can actually get them in the UK. It's just you Americans who've got all these, which is fantastic. Check you out on your gadgets. But then the extract hood above the cooker can be integrated with a microwave. I mean, that's brilliant. I want these things in my kitchen. So my challenge to anybody who's listening out in the States is I want to know, where can I get a microwave drawer that I can get shipped over here at reasonable cost, or anything that integrates really coolly that perhaps we don't have anything over here. I don't know. Do you have one in your house that you can just ship over, Heidi? Or would you be able to do that?
So I actually just redesigned it, and yes, I will have a microwave in a drawer. And when you mentioned, I just picked it out, and when you mentioned the what'd you call it, overhood?
Yeah, the extract.
Yeah, in the microwave. That's old news, Barry. You can now have it. You can now have it right behind your cooking stove. So mine is going to be. It's a little slit that is right behind your stove. And it just opens, and if you want to, you can slide it a little bit up or down, but it literally just pulls the smoke over here. So I will no longer have to have any of that over my stove.
I feel like we're so 20th century over here in the UK at the moment.
Somebody ship Barry a microwave drawer, please.
Please.
To be completely honest, I didn't know the microwave drawer was a thing before this. I'm going to make that the short to one of the shorts this week to see how many people knew it was a thing. My one more thing this week is well, I'm still recovering from HFES. I gotta say, we went out to that thing, and coming back last week, I kind of I had to hit the ground running on a couple of projects, and just this week, I'm kind of wrapping up on a few major things that I've been working on for a while, and it just feels good. I mean, I mentioned to you guys in the pre-show, I am on I'm on a break right now because we have a family friend in for Halloween. This is relaxing to me because my major projects are in review, and it feels good. That's all I'm going to say. All right. Well, with that, that's going to be it for today, everyone. If you like what this episode, you enjoy some of the discussion around exoskeletons, I'll go encourage you to go listen to episode 235. We talk about paraplegics walking again with the assistance of technology. That sounds a lot like this one, but it's different, I promise. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Discord community. Visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple things you can do. One, right now, wherever you're at, you could leave us a 5-star review. That is free for you to do and really helps us out. Two, you can always tell your friends about us. That helps us a little bit more than the 5-star review. Word of mouth is truly how we grow. People only listen to the show when they say, someone says, hey, you heard this show? couple people talking about human factors every week, and it's kind of cool. Or 3, if you have the financial means to do so, you want to support the show that way, you can always consider supporting us on Patreon. We're always adding new rewards over there for people who support us financially. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. Heidi, thank you for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about the pronunciation of your business name?
Oh, please not. Please don't. Oh, I guess it could be an icebreaker, right? So you can find us at www.hfux, as in human factors user experience, research.com. And then you can find us on Twitter at HFUX Research. Same thing on LinkedIn, HFUX Research. And guess what? On Instagram, on HFUX Research. So if you can't find us, find me, Heidi Mehrzad, on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to engage in a fun conversation always. And FYI, I always look for people who are looking for a mentor. So I know we brought that up in the chat. So if you're looking for a mentor, feel free to DM me.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi. Mr. Barry Kirby, thank you for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about where to find microwave drawers?
Well, if you've got a stock of microwave drawers and you want to send one to me, then you can slide into my DMs on Twitter at Baz_K. Or if you want to listen to some interviews where we get in touch with interesting people from around the human factors domain and find out what it is that they do, then come and find us at the 1202 Human Factors Podcast at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, if you want to come find me and talk to me about pressuring my co-hosts into embarrassing things in the outro, you can find me on our Discord at Nick_Roome, as well as all social media. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time,
It
depends. All right, we did it. We made it through.
Woo!
On the other side. Hey, chat, thank you for hanging out with us. That is, there's some phenomenal chat here. I want to make sure that in this post show we have a chance to address some of it, because I want to reward the people who
There's
are.
a lot there, yeah.
There's a lot. Awesome. So let's see. I'm gonna start at the top here, just from. Let's see here. We'll start here. My hot photo. Oh wait, nope, not that one.
I thought there's the best adult dating site that I think we need to give a shout out.
Best adult dating site. Yeah, new dating. So thank you, sexfind.xyz, new a dating site for all tastes and ages. Like that they're adding in some.
I've been looking for that for a long time, so that's excellent.
Extra senses in there. Let's see here. Okay, let's start here. Alex, I'm so excited about these robotic boots. As someone with mobility limitations, this is the closest thing to consistent spine repairs. Next up, Vanessa. I didn't have time to read the source. Are the prosthetics able to be integrated or solely focused on increasing mobility?
At the moment, they're about increasing mobility. But actually, you look at the design of them, and I see no reason at all why they couldn't be. Because at the moment they use the flex of the foot to make the motor work, and basically it's an additive effect. But I see no reason at all why you couldn't then extend that once that's proven to go on to prosthetic or anything like that, because it's a different movement, it's a different push, isn't it? So I think.
Yeah,
I could be talking complete rubbish. I mean, I might not know.
I don't know. I think the integration piece might come later. I think it's just boots that are helping with mobility right now. Alex, again, would it be used for specific for persons with mobility limitations for quality of life, or as a universal buy for this fun time? For universal buy this for a fun time is what I'm thinking of. I think we kind of answered that during the show. It's kind of the first one there, mobility, quality of life.
It's the first one, but I think we did raise the point quite strongly about the second bit, about that universal buy, and does that become a differentiator in culture for society? So it's go back to the have and have not. If you can afford it, then suddenly you're doing 20% more, baby.
Let's just let's just say all things being equal, right? Let's say we all got a pair of these. Heidi, what would you use yours for? Like, if you had a pair of these, what would you use them for?
Oh God, the vanity sets in. The vanity instantly sets in. I would develop and craft the most amazing legs and toned glutes and calves on the planet with this. I would hike my 3 stories in my house. I would go up and down all day long with those things until I had the masterpieces.
Does that mean that you'd have to? Well, I'm just curious. Since it's reducing energy savings by 17%, does that mean that you can still get the same effective workout or workout harder just with working less? Or does that then reduce the muscle load? It wouldn't reduce the, like, I'm not a biomechanics person, but that wouldn't reduce like the muscle load, right? It's just assisting with it. So would those still work the muscles?
Well, so on a personal note, I had a medical situation, and so I had to inject a medication that made me very nauseous and things like that. So I lost a lot of weight, and I didn't have the energy to do the day-to-day stuff that I used to do. So my muscles actually atrophied. So my curiosity would spike there. Like, if I now then could walk my stairs without feeling like I'm 90, could I then walk them more and then get my physical ability quicker back than the way I'm doing it now? So it all comes back to vanity.
Yeah. Barry, before you give your answer, I have one here from the chat. Barry, would you...
It's an obvious one. So since Alex has already taken that one for me, I will also then highlight that. I mean, for me, I don't know. I think it's one of these things. I think I would. It's like a lot of gadgets I get. I might go and use them once or twice. So I could see me using them once to go and walk up. So there's some hills I wanted to go up and walk near where I live that I wanted to go and go and do them. So I'd go and do them and that. Then I get back. And I'd take them off and I'd put them in the corner with my other boots. And then they'd stay in there. And I honestly think they probably would. Unless you had a specific use for them, I don't think that then there's something I would go out and use on a day-to-day basis. But maybe that's because that why I'm the size I am. I don't have the drive to go for those perfect calves and glutes as Heidi's trying to drive for.
What about using them while you're standing at your desk?
That's what I've got a chair for. Saying that, one of the things I've been looking at this week is to work out if I can change my setup to have more of to be able to adjust it to a standing desk, because I am spending a lot of time, even though I've got like 2-3 different desks. Check me out, 2-3 different offices. But I am spending a lot of time sat down still, and so I was debating about could I have a standing do this so I have a standing studio, and I don't know what the answer to that is yet. But yeah, so yes, there is an element of that. If they could help, you stand for longer, then yes, that could be a goer.
I got a question.
Once I'm using my microwave drawer.
Yeah, I got a question here. Is a chair nothing more than a butt prosthetic to assist with energy reduction, conservation? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's true. I see where you're coming from there.
Okay, good. I think I'm with you, Barry. If I had one of these, I think it would likely be the same. I'd probably try it to see what I could walk to around my immediate vicinity to see if walking to anything felt better than taking a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
I might use it to like go on a hike or two to make that. I mean, that might be the normal use if we bring hikes back into our rotation. Would that make them more tolerable for me as a parent with a 3-year-old? Can I then cart around my 3-year-old carrying him because he wants to be carried with 17% less energy? That might be nice. But again, it doesn't help with the arm fatigue. So,
but would that 17% energy less that you're expending then also, because then you'd be able to take them 17% further, which would that mean that you get 17% more sleep at the end of the day because they don't wake up?
Great minds think alike. That was my first response. Can you then carry them 17% longer?
Or can I get a little baby pair that I can put on him that that just makes walking that much easier for him, and then he just goes, and we just let him go, run free.
And that's the problem. You will never see him again.
Well, yeah, but
We'll be gone. He'll be like however many blocks away by the time you realize, we put the boots on. Darn it. And then your boots have run out of power because you forgot to charge them, so you can't chase him.
Yeah, we got a couple more here from the chat during the show. Vanessa, my dad is a recent amputee, so we've been looking at prosthesis, exoskeletons, or any kind of bionics aren't really something that we've looked into. And yeah, this could be totally another sort of non-invasive way to look, rather than bionics. This could be a non-invasive way to assist with some of that stuff. We mentioned that one on the show. Let's see here. Just reading down the list. Yeah, Alien. Oh yeah, the kind of the planned obsolescence, right? There's also the concern with persons who use electronic-based mobility prosthesis that are similar to other electronics and eventually stop updating, like phones. Planned obsolescence piece of it. That's government regulation right there. That's where they can step in and say you can't do that.
But there's been a case of that recently, hasn't there? Where a company produced a bionic eye.
Yeah,
and then stopped doing updates for the eye, so the eye just literally stopped. And it's not funny, but it's kind of funny.
Well,
the eye
it's
stopped
funny
working.
that you bring that up, because the last time that was brought up was the last time we had a third person on the show.
Well, there you go then. It's it's just the whole thing. That's great.
That reminds me of oh God, I don't want to say it wrong, but it's called angel funding. So I got on the train and angel funded these bone conducting earphones that were amazing. When they brought them out, this is, oh God, dating myself. This is what, 10, 11 years ago. And I was so hyped about them. And when they came out, as an angel funder, you get early access, and I got them and they were amazing. And then 2 years later, they were like, yeah, we didn't make it. So we will no longer be supporting or updating the software on them. And now they're dead. They can't update. And there's this beautiful headset that you can no longer use. So that would be another aspect, right?
Yeah. Well, I was on the Google Glass train.
Yeah,
and I had Google Glass, and we here in the obviously in the US, you'd had Google Glass for a good couple of years, and then they came over to the UK, and I was like, this is genius. And so when they came over, we were still fairly new in the company, and I was trying to get us to do internal research as much as external research, because I thought it'd be fun. And so we're like, right, well, we're going to lay out £1,000 on the Google Glass because they'll be amazing, blah, 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 blah. So we got them, and they were fab. And then Google said, that's brilliant. You're all part of the beta program. And I was like, yes, that's brilliant. And then they said, right, now the beta program's over. Thank you very much for your participation. See you all next time. And I was like, but, oh. And yeah, so now they do sort of work, but not very well. So we still got them, but yeah, no, I was gutted.
Yeah, as long as we're talking about paperweights, this one's pretty recent for me, so it still stings. But there's the Stadia controller for you.
What's that from?
That's Google Stadia, another killed by Google.
Oh, right, okay. I hadn't even heard of that before, so there you go.
Yeah, it was their solution to cloud gaming, which actually worked really well. And I was kind of a Stadia stand for a while, where I really thought that was the future of gaming. And because of various factors that I don't think it was marketed well, I think there was sort of a poor launch of the event and just not a whole lot of faith in it from the get-go. And so people were kind of expecting that. I was really hoping that they would. I think they are adapting that technology towards other things. But the idea is that you'd play games in the cloud and control it from wherever you're at, right? So I could play a game on this TV and then move it over to that TV. It's 4K, 60 frames per second, that type of thing. They just announced a couple weeks ago that they're killing it. So that's my paperweight, as long as we're talking about paperweights.
That's for me, that's interesting, because it reminds me of being the victim of Microsoft MBE. Oh God, my heart broke back then. But that actually brings me to a side topic in my head where I go, okay, well, that's the unregulated industry, right? So they get to do that. They get to throw out their beta products as a big beta trial, not tell the market, and just go, yeah, we're done. And so that's something that's in medical human factors. It's really hard, right? If you bring out a medical device, you're going to have to support it for the life of the device, right? So it would be, with respect to the exoskeleton, it would be interesting to see what route they take. Are they going to make it a consumer product, unregulated, or are they going to make it a regulated medical device, right? Because that's completely different. Because if it's a medical device, you wouldn't have to worry about it not being supported anymore.
Yeah, I'm reading through the chat here. I don't know if I can get to all this before we're done. I want to read the pop culture references because I like those. Right, the second Iron Man. This one's by Vanessa. Another pop culture reference: in the second Iron Man movie, there was examples of how system failures may cause physical harm to the wearer that is encased in them. So I think, yeah, you're right. There's definitely some of that going on. And then the Edge of Tomorrow, which was example of military exoskeleton combat use. So bringing in those pop culture references. I also want to bring in Christy's comment about, thank you for the shout out. You're welcome, Christy. That was the manager panel during the One More Thing.
One of her early comments, I thought she said that I was scary, but actually she just said that, I think it was around the bit where we're talking about the hijacking of the thing, that was a scary thought. I thought she just thought I was scary.
No, I don't think she thought you were scary.
That's okay then.
But she said we're doing great, so I don't think you're scary. I was actually with Christy on a panel at UXPA, and we had, when it comes to the manager stuff, it's surprisingly, it's a topic that really occupies people's minds. It is fascinating what the career fears and the what do I do and how do I solve this problem and who do I go and speak to, and very eye-opening for me, because I guess I was just naive. I just went into it. I'm like, yeah, I'll wing it. Like if it don't work out, I'll do something else. I can always go back to I started my career in finance. So I was like, yeah, I can always go back and work at a bank. Like they're never going to go out of style. So it's very eye-opening for me to see people be so eager and almost a little fearful and intimidated by doing the right things for your career. So I don't know if that's a generational thing. I'm not sure.
I think there's an element. Certainly now we're seeing a lot more of the idea of, you're not going to have just one career for life. You're going to do different things, pick up different things. And certainly here in the UK, we seem to be still stuck in, to a certain extent, not hugely, but we're quite fearful of this idea that you might jump to other things. Whereas like I started off in the military, then I was going to be a software engineer. So I did a whole bunch of software. And then I sort of stumbled upon this whole human factors, interfacey stuff. And I thought I'd better find out what that was about because it looked interesting. And then so I've stuck with that now for 10 years, 20 years, something like that, a long time. But I'm like, well, actually, I've dabbled in politics as well. And I've done this, that, and the other. And for me, it is quite refreshing thinking that having that approach more acceptable, that you can go and pick different bits for your career if something else is interesting. That's why I quite like one of the bits of advice I give everybody's feel free to say yes. We're very quick to say no to stuff, but actually say yes judiciously. Don't say it all the time, because otherwise then you end up
you get in trouble.
Yeah, well, you also end up doing loads of stuff, like running podcasts and all that sort of stuff.
How many podcasts? How many? What's your professional commitment? Yeah, there's a lot you got going on, Barry. That's because you're a yes man. Yeah,
there is a bit of that, but it's fun. It's mostly anyway.
Look, as long as you show up here every Thursday and talk with me, I don't care what you say yes to.
I'm not doing anything between 10 and midnight on most evenings. So, that's not an excuse for anybody else to want to do anything in them times as well. Apparently, my Amanda, my better half, says the rest of them are sacred. So, there we go. Oh.
I don't know. I think it's the having many careers. I think that's normal. First of all, we're aging like we're gonna be older. Each generation kind of gets old. Well, other than if you go through a pandemic, apparently we lowered our age during the pandemic. But I think that you should be open to all kinds of things because, quite frankly, most people that I know who really love their job or really enjoy what they're doing or found their, quote unquote calling or whatever, most people discovered it while doing other things. So I don't, other than, you got your graduates coming out of school for sure, but most of the time I'm not sure if they're really going to stick with that for the rest of their lives, right? They can evolve, and there's so many different fields you can do a certain type of job in. I've been in usability for, software systems, finance systems, and aviation, medical software, and then technology, now, pharmaceuticals. So you always evolve with everything. And I love what you said about saying yes, just do crazy things on the side that entertain you, like I was so fed up in aviation with the government funding always influencing when we could work and if you got furloughed or whatnot. So I was like, I'm going to go into medical, right? And then everybody's like, you just studied for aviation forever. And so I just went to night school to become an EMT. So I drove the ambulance. I was an EMT for a couple, for a year. I learned how to drive an ambulance. I had to get a license for it and had to go to EMT school and all that stuff. And I don't work in it anymore, but it just enriches you. It diversifies your experience, right? So I think it's very, almost a little closed-minded to think you have to make the right move now for the rest of your life, Well,
I gotta say, if I change careers, I gotta start a new podcast with whatever my new career is cast, because I don't know if I'd have the credibility to keep doing this. I don't know if I have the credibility now. That's imposter syndrome for you, but
we all have
what's that?
We all have it.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
As we're rounding out, I just want to bring up one more point Vanessa here makes in the chat. As I was bringing up Stadia, Vanessa says that Stadia also had a much cheaper buy-in, which is also great for greater accessibility. That is true. Stadia, so the other reason why I was so hopeful about the future is because Stadia was free. You could log in on your computer and play a game if it was a free-to-play game using the keyboard and mouse that you have. Or if you had a controller, you could plug that into your computer and play it that way. The paid thing that I had there was it's like $120 or something, much cheaper than a traditional console, but you just plug it into your it's a Chromecast, so there's still some added value after it's dead, but there's that. Anyway, we're at the end for today. I can't believe that 2 hours went by really quick. So thank you, both of you, for being on the show today and for hanging out during the pre-show and post-show as we wind down. Heidi, really appreciate that we got you on the show and that we got those AV issues worked out really early on. You're always welcome back on.
Thank you. I mean, I had to have an impact, right? I had to have a thing in order to make a mark. So, I had to be lost and then come back. It's like,
right, yeah. It was the drama. It was the drama because we were like, is she gonna make it?
Will she come back or not?
It's tense.
Was that it? Shortest visit ever.
All right, everyone.
Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.
See you later, folks. Bye.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast Network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our weekly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and Human Factors Minute, a Patreon-only weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.